it is. I'll look at it later.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Yeah.
We are now live, and feel free, guys, to ask questions. My name is Alex from breathingcoldbali.com, and I love to chit chat with people that have something to say and that are really working and bringing some light to my passion, which is the breath. So through different approaches, we are getting to understand a bit more who we are, what's going on. And the breath is a beautiful gateway to do that. So today, I'm very, very happy. I'm bringing someone that is dear to me, someone I personally work with, Phill Hunt. Phill has been doing incredible things for me and has a really unique approach. Not unique, but he has his own take and very, very well thought methodology and approach to mind, body, soul integration. So that's what we're going to explore today. How are you, Phill?
I'm great.
How do you feel, Phill? I mean, what a name. When
Yeah.
you are in the business of getting people to feel more,
Exactly.
and you are Dr. Phill, you know, someone in the family got it right.
Yeah, it's a play on words that people have used a few times. How
Okay.
you feeling? Yeah.
So Phill, tell us a little bit what it is that you do, my friend.
Yeah, so it's interesting actually you called it soul-body integration because it's had a little bit of history. I've been an osteopath for a number of years, and some time ago I had an opportunity to work at a yoga studio in London, and the guy there, he met me and he said, "I really want you to work here." He said, "But I've got a guy who's working here already. So I can't really, he's the head honcho." So I said, well, that's not really a problem because I don't really do osteopathy and I haven't done osteopathy for a long time. So he said, well, find another name and you're in. So I did rename it. It's gone through a few rebirths in that period of time. And back then I called it Soma Psyche because it's Soma is the body. And for a long time, I've been working obviously on people's bodies, being an osteopath. But over many years, really, how it evolved was that I think actually after the first 5 years of working in a clinic, I discovered that, well, I'm working on people and I'm getting better and better at finding out where the issues are in their bodies. And people would come back and it would be, hang on a minute, I sorted that problem out last week. You're realigned and this is back in place and something else is going on. And this was many years ago. And there's something else that was going on that I wasn't really addressing back then, was the stress that was in their body. And it was showing up as physical tension. But what I wasn't trained in back then was dealing with what's behind stress. What does that really mean? And it was a long journey, but it got me to the place of understanding that emotional charge is what I really wasn't dealing with. And of course, emotional charge is much more than just feeling angry or feeling upset in some way. It shows up physiologically, and behind emotional charge is the mind, is how we think. But much more than that, it's actually our belief system that's kind of set in the first 7 years of our lives, what we believe. And when I say beliefs, it's really non-serving beliefs, because if you were believing good stuff, then you wouldn't kind of be getting upset. And so it became Soma Psyche, and then it became soul-body integration. And now, in fact, it's kind of rebirthed itself, because I'm just about to launch a book and a training, and it's now called Insight Osteopathy. And the reason why I've kind of kept the name osteopathy is because that I'm so grateful for my osteopathic training, because osteopathy really is a whole system of medicine where the osteopath is looking at structure in a very holistic way. But the founder of osteopathy himself, Dr. Still, always said that it was holistic, that it's not just the body, it is the spirit, it is the soul, it's the psyche of the individual that needs to be integrated as well. And through that process, this whole system of mine has evolved, and it keeps evolving, which is the great thing. But for at least a decade now, it's been very solid in a methodology which I've created.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's really that idea that restore issues in our tissues. Right. There is something that I really lived with you and experienced with you, is really that, you know, if my body is experiencing something, what does it mean if I manage to listen? What if I listen to my body? And having people like you, you know, I would say you're not an osteopath, you're kind of a translator. You're kind of coming here and say, and you're reading the body. I have no idea what my body is, and then you're helping me make sense of this, you know, nonsense that my body is going through. And it really, there is something quite cathartic in your approach, which is, and meeting the pain. So you're going into places, and I mean, it can be excruciatingly painful. And you would tell me, Alex, I barely pressed. And can you elaborate a little bit on what's going on there?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what it is, it's interesting you use the word pain, but it really starts as uncomfortable, an uncomfortable feeling. And as soon as something shows up in our lives that's uncomfortable, how do we deal with it? And mostly people tend to ignore it, or defend against it, or push it away. And there are lots of ways that people do that. You know, eating, if you're uncomfortable, because usually uncomfortable is a feeling that's uncomfortable. So what most people don't do is go straight into the feeling. You know, it's the most natural thing in the world to do. And we're kind of, we're not trained. It's a natural thing to do from birth, because a baby, as soon as it feels any discomfort whatsoever, it will express itself. And it doesn't matter, you know, brand new parents often freak out because they got a brand new baby and it starts crying, and they're thinking, oh my God, there must be something terribly wrong, but it's got a bit of wind, or it's a little bit hungry, or it's slightly, you know, whatever it is, it could be the tiniest thing. It could be a big thing as well. But immediately the program's there in that being to fully express. And the reason why it does that is that it gets its need met in that moment, but also it releases, it's balancing its neurology, its physiology in the most incredible way. But we have that programmed out of us. And the biggest program that's running in human beings is it's not okay to feel. And at some point, it might be the most, well, I was going to say, it's not an innocuous comment, but the number of times you hear, you know, a parent say, for God's sake, will you stop crying? If you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. It's the setup is, it's not okay to be with my feelings. Or it might be just a parent who demonstrates. You can actually feel, a child will feel when their parent is actually in an emotional state. But the parent is demonstrating, I'm going to be strong. And being strong is, I'm not going to express my emotions. So look, you're seeing me being really strong, because if you saw me crying, I'd be weak, wouldn't I? Or other things that are running, programs, ideas, you know, big boys don't cry, for example. So there are so many ideas that are embedded in culture, and you see it in movies over and over and over again. It's not just our parents. It's not just, it's in culture that to be emotional, to express emotion is not okay. So what happens, of course, is that people find ways to manage. And for me, that's my angle on addiction, in that we will go to that place. It might be watching Netflix. It might be having something that will soothe, some sort of pleasure. So, of course, drugs, having a drink, a cigarette, anything which will bring down that emotional charge, except it doesn't bring it down. That's the thing. It doesn't just disappear, but it does become unconscious. It gets embedded in the unconscious. And this is the thing, and this is the big discovery, because it will always show up as tension somewhere in the body. So when you ask the question, when you say, what are you doing with me? You know, I'm hardly pressing, what is it? What we're doing together is bringing to the surface the discomfort that was unconscious. And so often in individuals, it does show up as pain, because when you push down, not just, it happened yesterday, something happened yesterday, the day before, 3 weeks ago, 5 months ago, 10 years ago, it doesn't disappear. Energetically, it's always in this container, the body, and there are target areas. There are specific areas, and one that just immediately pops to mind is, if you're frustrated, you grind, you clench your teeth. So the jaw is a prime example of, there you go, a being having its need met. I want to go, let the dog out. So there are, and that's the thing, with the great thing about osteopathy is it's not just understanding how body tissues through fascia are all interconnected. It's part of what I'm teaching now is the chakra system, because each of those 7 major, there are more chakras, but each part of our body is an expression, is part of where the spirit sort of lives and expresses itself, from the root, which is where we feel the experience of safe. I'll go through each one, because it's just literally a word about each one. The base, where the hips are and the pelvis is secure, because our feet literally are on the ground from that place. And then the genitals is where we create, literally we create. So pleasure and just that creative energy comes from that area, from that part. And then just above there, the solar plexus, which is really our center. And it's where the diaphragm is, and it's where your kidneys are, and it's where the adrenals are. So stress pours into that central part of our body, and it's where our guts are as well. So insults and attacks get us right in the center, but there's a massive discharge of hormone into that area. And then right above, that's the 3rd chakra. And then in the heart chakra, of course, is where we experience the heart, and every aspect of joy is experienced in the 4th chakra, and the opposite of that, we contract when we hate and we're disappointed. It all shuts down, and that's where we'll experience it in the body. So each body area has an incredible intelligence. It's like there's a brain, there's a neural center in each part of the body. So the body there's so much intelligence there. I'm expressing myself now through this area, through the throat. I've got my thyroid there, which is a massive communicating organ, but my voice box. I can only speak and I can only express through my voice. And then knowledge, of course, is here in the pineal gland and the brain, which is cognizing all of our nervous system. And then the final one, the 7th, is literally this portal here. And this is where, if you look at a picture of the field around us, it literally, consciousness pours in through the top of the
torus field. Yeah.
The torus, yeah. So every part of the body is not responsible, but it's manifesting our experiences or not. And that's where things go wrong, because if we don't express, or if we're absolutely unsafe, then those parts of the body shut down. And that's where I've gone so beyond osteopathy, which is very much about alignment and about observing and about, this is out of balance, here's the pelvis, there's a vertebra, is it in restriction? It's so much bigger than that. Why are those areas out of alignment and out of balance? And the massive answer to that is, what's happening to the psyche of that individual? What have they experienced? What trauma haven't they integrated? Did they actually have a physical fall? Did somebody break their heart? Did somebody attack them? Did somebody criticize them? Were they controlled in such a way that they couldn't express themselves? Were they disconnected from their own intelligence? Did they have too much fluoride, or did something happen? So everybody's got a story. Everybody's got layers and layers and layers of history. And just in a 24-hour period, just being in life, just getting up in the morning and just going for a ride on a motorbike, or whatever you do, or interacting with somebody, it's kind of up and down all the time. And on top of the daily up and down biorhythms, we've got all of our history. And 90% of it is stored in the unconscious. 10% you know about right now, you know about your history, you know what's happened, but 90% is buried. So when you start really delving into the body, you press on, now you know about those chakra areas, which have their own intelligence, but there's storage points. You start pressing, and you say, Phil, what are you doing when you press? The memories come to the surface because it triggers an opening and a release. And that natural intelligence wants to restore itself. That's how nature's working.
Phil, I just want to pause you here. You've been doing this for a long time, and I just want you to confirm, whenever you're pressing that specific part of the body, according to the chakra system, what people express as, and the memory that is coming out of the surface is related to what you described, what's happening in each chakra. So it's really, you find that it's actually working, like there is a clear, because all this part, unfortunately, is not completely science backed yet. So, if I have some kind of, safety issues, if you press on my base and my hips, and this is where would you have, in your experience, people share traumas or stored memories that are aligned with this, with what you shared in terms of chakra positioning?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point, because no, the answer is all the times I've worked on individuals, I'm surprised time and time again that an issue can come up, and I always ask the question, where is that right now? Where are you feeling that in your body? And it doesn't always have to be directly related to that point. We don't only experience heartbreak here. So the whole system is integrated. The whole system is constantly in communication. And I think the true answer to that question is, for each unique individual, in that moment when they're going through whatever they're going through, they're going to react in their own unique way. So somebody might fall over and bang their knee. So they might associate heartbreak with knee pain, for example. Or there might have been a fight and they might have been punched in their shoulders. So they're associating a memory with whatever it might be, whatever the issue. All I'm saying is that about the chakras is that there's true physiology there. Each part has an organ and a condensation of the nervous system. There are complex nerves, which some people think of, well, it's kind of like a brain. So it has its own intelligence, like the thyroid gland, like the heart itself, and the thymus, and the kidneys and the adrenals, which always respond to stress. When you can't be stressed unless your adrenal glands are pumping out cortisol and pumping out adrenaline. Otherwise, you wouldn't be feeling a thing at all.
It is fascinating. So in your experience, when you are giving sessions, people are releasing those stored memories and being able to release. And what's super interesting is we really come to, and it's really linked to the breath, because it's another demonstration of the limit of psychotherapy. There is so much I can remember, but through your practice and, some breathing practices, you actually relive it. So it's no longer a memory, but it's something that is coming back. Okay, it's very present. It's really alive in the body right now, and I'm experiencing it again.
Yeah. I think for me, I think where radical shifts occur is the emotional charge has to come to the surface, because in psychotherapy, some very good psychotherapists can actually help people really be with that emotion as they're talking about an event. But I think real transformation occurs when you go right through the feeling, because something happens physiologically. It's like a rewiring of the nervous system, because when there's a ditty, the way out is through. And that's the thing, because in addiction, there's always this compulsion to bypass, to never really go into the pain. Why would you? It's the hardest thing in the world. For me, it's the ultimate spiritual, not practice, it's the ultimate thing anybody can do. It's like, we're here, it's the journey of the soul to meet whatever it is, our biggest fear. It's the biggest challenge, but to go there, how do you do it unless, often people are forced to go there because there's a setup. It's like they've unconsciously set themselves up to lose their job or to have a breakup in a relationship. It's like, I knew this was going to happen, but I've set myself up. Now I'm with my pain. But then they'll bypass it again. So they'll find other ways. And until there's that knowing that I've got, right, this is happening now, I've got to feel this. I've heard that so many times. And for me personally, that's when breakthroughs really occur. When you can go to that place and go in. And it's hard to do by yourself. People can do it by themselves. But when somebody is actually really touching and that part of the body that's associated with it, shaking it, trauma releasing it, pressing it, actually physiologically opening the fibers that are storing the charge, it helps. It makes it so much easier. And that's what this work is all about. It's going to that place, finding where there's a trapped emotion, but at the same time, freeing the body simultaneously, the two together. Breathworks are amazing in that with a breathwork, you can access the unconscious part of yourself and feelings can come to the surface. But it's unusual unless there's a really good facilitator who knows what they're doing, that can access that part of the body, that really access that part and go to that place so that the body physiology changes in that moment.
I think the breath is used to ride the wave of the pain, to instead of, when you are experiencing pain, your whole body wants to get away from the pain, you're getting the signal, get out, get out. And connected and staying present with the breath and not going into contraction allows you to, okay, now I can experience pain, I can witness the pain, I can see the pain, and I'm okay, and I can go there. So meeting it. I was going to ask you that because this is fantastic, but we need to, how do you do it when you don't have a trained osteopath, and most osteopaths don't do this work. So one thing that I do is I have nails. And I lay down on my nails and I experience the pain, or I would step on the nails, and it's really really painful. And I want to get away from the nails, but I had some, not as deep, but I had some really amazing breakthrough by just again riding the pain of the nails. Or in another form, which I do regularly, and I train people too, is to go for ice baths. Another moment where you want to run away. So it's really that idea of, I'm triggered right now. Okay, I need to protect myself. Okay, my mind can tell me that it is safe, even though the body is having an experience that it's not okay. But, that's why you're an osteopath, and that creates safety. And I think using the name osteopathy is smart because you will create safety for people with that term. And then they will surrender, says, okay, he can touch my neck. He knows what he's doing. Whereas, most people with traumas, they will be really reluctant and really careful with who they're being touched with by. So, I wonder your take on how can you do it by yourself?
It's a good point. And I'm always, people say, well, what do you do? Who works on you? And I have a practice. And I think the most important thing is when you have a practice, you're making space to access that part. So for me, it's actually physical exercise and quite vigorous in the moment. So I do interval training. It might, whatever it might be, running on the spot or in a pool. So it's quite intense for 30 seconds so that you get to the place where you're really out of breath. And then you're kind of you're facilitating the access to a portal to the unconscious. And that's how breathwork works, because you're kind of going into theta. You're making spaces between thoughts. You're not thinking all the time, which is alpha and beta brainwave state. So in that meditative state, whatever's there can come to the surface. And I usually find the vigorousness of the exercise enables, I'm moving my body. Let's say if I was just shadow boxing, for example, that's a good way of, that's actually a Qigong exercise, just doing this. So you're punching the air in front of you. So it's kind of facilitating, and it's moving energy. Qigong means energy work. So your body is moving, and it's an opportunity to move the energy, but you're also moving it through the meridians. Other people, and again, another Qigong technique is to tap or clap. Some people call it clapping. So you literally, you tap or slap along the meridians. And that's, I mean, you can look up where they are, but actually just going all along the insides and outsides of the arms and the insides and the outsides of the legs, because there are lots of meridians in both of those places, and just doing that. But when you say nails, do you mean a Shakti mat? Is that what you were talking about? Oh, I've lost your sound.
Oh, I think that's for beginners.
Oh, that's for beginners. Oh my God. You're going to go and get it. You've got a real bed of nails.
I've got a proper, I've got a proper bed of nails.
Wow. Did you make that?
No, there's, I live in Ubud and we have those crazy Russians, that's something that those guys do. But it's, so, I have two of them. And I just, I just lay my whole body on the nails. And, it's quite heavy, but I went to France for a month. I was in lockdown with my parents for a month. Mm-hmm. And I thought there's one thing I need, and that's my nails. Because, no, literally, when I'm, my parents are my best, I call them my mindful.
They're your gurus.
They are my gurus. They are my, I can learn because, of course, I get triggered. And of course, I contract the body because I don't want to respond and I want them to love me. So I'm going to be a nice boy and I'm not going to express what's going on because I don't want to be rejected, what you shared at the beginning. So I bring it to my room, but now I have that safe space, between the journal and the nails to actually feel, okay, what's underneath that? What's underneath the trigger? And someone in the chat is asking, is it about accepting the pain? Correct me, but I think it's about feeling what is underneath the pain, what is underneath the trigger, what is the emotional charge, and how can I go to the root of that trauma or disease in the body?
So the first thing is, if you're doing breath work, your own spirit, your own innate intelligence will take you to where you need to be. So you don't invent. A lot of people say, this is what I want to work on, but then it turns out it was something completely different. Because remember, 90% is unconscious. So whatever's relevant will always come to the surface. But it's a really good point about pain. Because pain is actually, again, another portal. It's not the physical pain. It's actually where you can bring yourself to presence. And the number of people I've spoken to and the number of times I've done it where it's not about being in pain, it's actually going to that place, because when you meet that place, which is so intense, it's actually an intensity, something shifts, there's a surrender. And then that's when the change occurs. Up until then, everybody's in resistance. When you're in pain, you say, oh, I'm in pain, you're resisting. So it's great that you've got that implement, a bed of nails, but really, what you're doing is taking yourself to a place where, okay, I'm either going to just be in suffering for however long you do it, or I'm going to take myself to a place where I can really let go. Because that's the only thing, that's so intense to have so many points of pain. But the only way you can deal with it is, well, there's two things. You're either going to dissociate, which is what most people do. And that's an important point with any work like this, because I'm always mindful that that people can dissociate, because that's what they did the first time they were in trauma. They dissociate. Dissociation means that they literally their nervous system switches off.
Freeze, the fight, flight, freeze mode.
It's like the spirit literally leaves and they're not there anymore. And people can actually talk about it. People talk about that during a session where I'm not here.
It's a coping mechanism to avoid. If I'm going to die, my body is going into auto protection so I don't experience pain. I cannot run away. I cannot fight it. It's my parents, what I'm going to do. So I'm going to freeze. And then all of a sudden I can go through that experience.
Absolutely. And it's a survival mechanism as well, because people, can have terrible accidents and break, people are literally seeing bones sticking out. And they have to if they didn't dissociate, they'd pass out. and that could bring more danger. So it has a use. It's a powerful physiological mechanism. But of course, if we're trying to transcend and we're trying to really meet that part of the soul that is looking to integrate, because, you know, if there are three major archetype traumas that we all have. The first one is rejection, so a feeling of rejection, and that will bring up all sorts of emotions. But it could be the slightest thing, but that can bring a trauma about, which will then act itself out in that person's life. And then there's abandonment, and again, a baby could be just left for a very short period of time, and that soul will you know, if somebody leaves or whatever, you know, it's the tiniest thing, there'll be a trigger of I'm abandoned, and then there'll be layers of rage and grief that will come up. And the other one is shame, and shame can have many guises, where we then go into the non-serving beliefs, because there are two major non-serving beliefs, and the big one is there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong, and shame is very much. I mean, the other two, rejection and abandonment, can feed into that. But shame is a massive one around this, something wrong with me. And I'm not enough. And those are the two big ones. And there are emotions that are embedded in those. And that's what limits every human being, I found in my kind of search and my own inner work, is that's the only limitation, are those non-serving beliefs. They're the only way we limit ourselves. Because we just go ahead, oh, I'll do that, I'm going to do that. And the only reason why people don't just say, I'm going to do that right now, is because what if I'm not good enough to do it? What if? There's always a what if. And the point is that there's emotional charge embedded deeply neurologically. You know, when people talk about patterns, emotional charge is embedded. And until that emotional charge is gone through, then the limit will always be self-imposed. That's what makes the difference.
Phil, the way I understand in your explanation, you still need, you know, some kind of an expert of the body who can do that. Do you train only body workers, or like osteopaths or therapists, or can anybody really do that with a bit of learning? Someone who doesn't have anatomy background, can they learn that, or is that a bit sensitive?
No, it's a really good question. I've actually kind of got two streams, because I think obviously osteopaths and chiropractors and physiotherapists will take this on board very, very quickly, because they have all that knowledge. But the truth is, I've had sessions with people that have no background whatsoever and don't know anatomy, but there's a genius within them. They have just skills in their hands, and they have this thing, and it's called intuition. They're just so intuitive. I'm sure you've met people like that. And I would love to offer this training to those people as well. I think it's not really about anatomy. Obviously, you have to have a knowledge, a base knowledge of basic physiology. It would be really, really helpful, because you can't really hold space for somebody if they suddenly go into a psychotic break or something like that, or you know, or get ill or throw up or something. You've got to have at least some first aid skills that's never happened, by the way, ever. You know, it's never had an emergency situation like that.
No, but you manipulate bones and joints, and
yeah,
and that's,
so,
you know, I don't want anybody to just touch.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be, only an osteopath can do that, and that's, I mean, I've had work on people that have trained in, say, you know, just body work and shiatsu, who were brilliant, and it felt better than a lot of osteopathic treatments that I had from osteopaths. Really, the massive skill set for osteopaths. I mean, obviously, an osteopath is trained like a conventionally trained medical doctor, because we're taught pathology, so we're diagnosticians. So if you're sitting with a person osteopathically, you need to be able to take their case history. So that's a medical background. Insight Osteopathy, or I will be calling it Insight Bodywork, because anybody trained in it won't be an Insight Osteopath, they'll be an Insight Body Worker. will be taking somebody through a process and using a set of bodywork skills. I know that when I've worked on you, I have used osteopathy, so it's quite different. But here's the thing. It's absolutely just as effective by using just the basic bodywork skills, which is working on soft tissue, something called pulsing. There are TRE, trauma release exercises, and many other maneuvers which don't involve manipulation at all. Sometimes manipulation can really make it powerful, but it's the process that anybody could learn, because the process is a skill set. I've built it from many different disciplines, from psychosynthesis psychology, from journey work, many different things, and it's a dialogue, but it's also there's a basic script. It's taking somebody on a journey, so you could learn that. So ideally, anybody who's interested in healing, and if somebody had a background in basic physiology, they could learn to do this.
Cool. So before I ask you, where to find you and all this stuff, I want to share with everyone that I've done many sessions with you, and I have recorded them, and some of them I have a video. So if you send me a private message, it's not a public video, it's a private one, but I'll happily send you the link so you can actually see how fucked up I am and how this works in a very vulnerable way, where I really release a lot and with the intention for people to really get what it's all about, not just with words, but also experience and visualize it. So, send me a private message and I'll happily send you that video. So Phil, tell us, how do we work with you? What's where do we find all these courses?
Yes. So I've now I've had a website for a while, and it's easy to remember because it's www.insightosteopathy.com.
Okay, we'll put the link.
And all my email, my WhatsApp are all on the website, and it will be updated very soon because the course is right now as we speak. It's being built. It's all been created, and it's just in the final edits. So it will be available hopefully within the next few weeks.
Wow! Yes, yeah. I'm excited to share that with you guys, and we'll put the link. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Phil?
What would you like me to say?
That's why I think we covered quite a lot, and people who want to explore more, I think they have will be able to reach out to you. And if you guys are into breathwork, there is I lead and facilitate a breathwork teacher training. So it's on breathingcoldbelly.com. I bring incredible humans like Dr. Phil, sharing their wisdom, their knowledge, their experience, so we get to understand the magic of the breath and what we can do with it, and with the intention for you to find your own breath. So that's what it's all about. Check out breathingcoldbelly.com. Phil, thank you so much for coming here today.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's great to talk to you, Alex. I look forward to another session soon.
Goodbye, everyone.